hassle-free session, here are a few housekeeping rules that I'll brief you on. To begin with, all your mics will be muted. So while the session is going on, you can keep your audio on mute. Secondly, you can choose to keep your camera on or off. We suggest you to keep it off during the presentation, and later during the Q&A session, you can turn it on. Also, we request you to turn your view to speaker view. You can do that by clicking on the icon, speaker icon, which is there on the top right corner of your screen. Also, for all the queries or doubts that you might have during the session, you can type those questions in the chat box. And later, after the session, we will be addressing to all of them in our Q&A round. Okay. So hoping I'm clear with all the housekeeping rules. Moving ahead to the agenda of our webinar today. So from 10:05 to 10:45 a.m., we will be discussing process safety management in detail, which will be including what is process safety management, why is process safety management important, where to apply process safety management, how to implement process safety management. Also, we'll be discussing about the benefits of process safety management, the international standards with regards to the process safety management, and introduction to NIBOSH process safety management. After that, once we are through the session, from 10:45 a.m. to 11 a.m., we will be going for the question answer session, wherein we will be addressing to all your questions. So please feel free to type in your questions during the presentation. And by 11 a.m., we are planning to have a final wrap up. Now, I would like to take the honor to introduce you to our guest speaker for today's session, Mr. Bhaskar Rao Dubbal. So Mr. Dubbal is a chemical engineer with an extensive experience of 39 years in the industry, including plant commissioning, operations, and oil and gas projects. He was associated with prominent companies like Technimont ICB, Petrofac International, LG Polymers India, Reliance Industries India, Petroleum Development of Oman, Kuwait National Petroleum Company, and many others. He has also garnered several years of experience as a process safety consultant, chairing HAZOP study, human factor engineering study, PSM auditing and training, and also he is a NIBOSH approved instructor for delivering numerous NIBOSH courses. So, Mr. Dubbal, thank you for joining us today. I would request you to take it ahead from here. So you can start sharing your screen so that our viewers can have view.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Aishwarya. I'll just share the presentation. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, Mr. Dubbal, we can see your screen.
Okay. So thank you, Aishwarya, and we will now start with the presentation on process safety management. Let us start with a few questions of what, why, when, where, etc. on process safety management. We'll start with what is process safety management. So first we must know what is a process. And a process is any activity involving a highly hazardous chemical, including their use, their storage, manufacture, handling, on-site movement, or a combination of these. So basically a process involves highly hazardous chemicals. Next, we'll go into what is process safety. Process safety is the safe operation of the facilities that handle hazardous materials. Now, these hazardous materials can create problems. They can cause fires, explosions. So we need to handle those plants very safely. So that is all about process safety, to ensure that these highly hazardous chemicals do not create any problems like fires, explosions, toxic leaks, etc. Next, let's come to what is process safety management. Basically, it is application of the management principles and standards to, number one is identify, understand, and control the process hazards. So there are three stages in this. You identify the hazards, you understand them, understand the risk, and then control the hazards. That is to reduce your risk, to reduce the possibility of emissions from happening in the facility. Now, another reason for process safety management is to prevent the occurrence or minimize the consequence. If you can prevent the occurrence, that is well and good. If you cannot prevent, if it has happened, you mitigate the consequence, reduce the damages, reduce the losses. It also helps in that, because sometimes it's not possible to avoid an accident. An accident happens. So, or minimize the consequence of catastrophic release or explosive materials. And basically this has to be applied in the entire life cycle of a plant, of a facility, right from the design, construction, operations, inspection, maintenance, and if you modify your facilities also, it is required. So that is all about what is process safety management. Okay, now let's come to why we need process safety management. 1 minute, let me just pick it. I hope it's better now. What is process safety management? To prevent catastrophic release of hazardous chemicals that have a potential to cause fires, explosion, or toxic exposures. We don't want to have any such releases of toxic chemicals or hazardous chemicals, because they could end up in fires, explosions, etc. So the catastrophic release. Catastrophic is a major uncontrolled emission of fires and explosion. You're not able to control, and that is a catastrophic release. Highly hazardous chemicals are those substances that possess toxic, reactive, flammable, or explosive properties. So this is just to understand why we have the process safety management. We want to prevent catastrophic releases of any of these highly hazardous chemicals which could cause fires, explosions, or toxic explosions. Next, where do we apply PSM? Now, OSHA is one of the main regulations which is followed throughout the world, one of the main PSM standards, because that is a very organized and properly system. So in the PSM is applicable to companies handling highly hazardous chemicals. In each industry, OSHA has a list of 130 specific toxic and reactive chemicals. If it falls in that list, and each chemical, there is a threshold quantity specified in that. If it exceeds that, then PSM is applicable and can be used to implement in that. Other than toxic and reactive chemicals, it also includes highly flammable liquids and gases, which, if they are more than 10,000 pounds or 4.5 tons or more, then also PSM is applicable. So basically, if your chemical falls in the list of chemicals under OSHA standard, and if that exceeds the threshold quantity, or any flammable liquid and gases which are exceeding 4.5 tons, will also be eligible for application of PSM. Okay. Now, how do we implement the process safety management? I mean, basically it's a long process, but we'll just cover that broadly through a comprehensive program that integrates established technologies, procedures, and practices to identify, evaluate, and control the hazards with the highly hazardous chemicals used in process. As I already said earlier, we identify, evaluate, and control the hazards. That is a part of the process safety management implementation. Further, once you identify the hazards, you have to conduct a risk analysis to understand what is the risk level of these chemicals. Are they very high risk? They are low risk, you can just manage with some procedures, some training, etc. But then high risk, you need to do some solutions to reduce the risk to reasonably acceptable level. So that's just a brief outline of how to implement. You have to identify the hazards, do the risk analysis, and have control measures to reduce the risk to as low as reasonably practicable and acceptable. Next, what are the benefits? Benefits can be classified into three categories. The first one is risk reduction. Obviously, because one of the main purpose of process safety management to reduce the risk. So once you reduce the risk, you prevent human injury, reduce the losses due to damage, and also environmental damages. So this is the first part is risk reduction. The next is sustained values. It helps to boost your productivity and improve your product quality, and also contributes to better shareholder value, because once your company is more efficient, you have a better quality due to no accidents and proper training, etc. You have a better shareholder value. It also supports other management systems. Now we have like ISO 45 health standard, we have 14001 ISO, which is an environment standard. We have RC 14001, which is responsible care. So once you implement process safety management, it will be easy to implement, because some of the elements are common between these systems. Like PSM is one of the elements in RC 14001. Responsible care, one of the main elements is PSM. So that is how it helps in implementing other systems. If you're going for ISO 45000, 14001 RC, it would help. So these are some of the benefits of process safety management. Now normally we have two international standards which we follow throughout the world. One is the OSHA standard, and the standard is Process Safety Management of Highly Hazardous Chemicals Standard. It has a number which is 29 CFR 1910.119, because OSHA has hundreds of standards. So this number specifically deals with process safety management. It has 14 elements, and in this NIBOSH, all the elements are covered in some way or the other. We also have the CCPS, Center for Chemical Process Safety. They have the risk-based process safety, which are 20 elements. So there is some difference between these two, 14 and 20 elements, but the 14 elements are the major ones which are used in most of the industries. Okay, so that is about international process standards, PSM standards we use. So this is all about briefly about PSM, why, where, how, etc. Now let us come to the main certificate program, which is the NIBOSH HSE Certificate Process Safety Management. Now in this, what are the benefits of doing this certification course? This qualification is designed to provide the following benefits to the delegates. Provides a broad understanding of the acceptable principles and practices for the management of process risk, and will ensure that they can recognize and contribute to the control of process safety hazards. So the delegates would be in a position to identify the hazards and provide control measures to reduce the risk to a tolerable risk, and also provides a broad understanding of the general acceptable principles and industry practices for the management of process risk. So this is something about the benefits of doing this course. Who will benefit? Now, employers will benefit as well as employees. The employees will benefit all the companies which are working in industries like oil and gas, chemicals, plastics, pharmaceuticals, etc. They will all benefit from this process safety management. This system is effectively used to help people, keep people safe from injury and loss of life, and protect the valuable assets to avoid prosecution and loss of reputation. Yeah? So this is how it will benefit the employers who implement this safety system in their industry. Now, employees. Who will benefit employees? Now, employees, all operation personnel, if they take the training, who work in the process industry, oil and gas, process industries like oil and gas, chemicals, plastics, pharmaceuticals, definitely it will help them a lot. Similarly, it's also ideal for managers, safety representatives, and health and safety advisors working within the process industries. So it's related to the operation point of view, but no, it's not designed for chemical and process safety engineers experienced in specification. If you are doing the design of a facility, you are doing the maintenance of a facility, you prescribe the specification for a facility in the design stage applicable to them. It won't help them to deal with hazardous chemicals which can release and cause toxic damages, etc. Because they're just in the design stage. This is basically meant for people who are really in the work site and who are handling those chemicals in this facility. And also those who are responsible for the fire and safety, like managers, safety representatives, health safety advisors, it is meant for them. Yeah? But if in the engineering companies like a design HSC manager or something, if he does this course, it will be beneficial, but he will not be able to implement it because he's just in the design office. He's not working the plant. So that is the benefit of this one. Now, just little about this course, and then we will go into briefly what this course contains, what are the elements, and what all items are covered. So you'll come to know how depth the course is, etc. So we'll first cover briefly about the course. I'll run through very quickly. Eligibility, basically, if you have a knowledge of health and safety issues, it would be advantageous to do this course. Like if you already done an NABOSH IGC for occupational safety and health or some other related HNC course, you have a basic concept of health and safety issues in highly hazardous industries. That would help. Or you're dealing with chemicals, etc. That would help. Next, number of training days is 4 days. 4 days of training, and the exam will be 90 minutes, of which 40 multiple choice questions will be there. Pass mark is 60% in the exam. 24 correct questions out of 40. That is the passing mark. The certificate will be 20 days of the result notification, within 20 days. So that is just briefly about the course. It's a 4-day course, and you will have an exam, 40 multiple choice questions. Pass mark is 60%. Yeah? So that is just about the NABOSH course. Now we'll see what this training program really contains and what are the bases to understand the depth of the training program. Okay. Now, the first element is process safety leadership. Now, we have in this 6 chapters or sections, and the first one is process safety management meaning. So what it does is, this chapter will outline the meaning of process safety and explain how it is different from the personal safety. Now, personal safety, it just leads which if somebody is just injured or with ease. But process safety, we already seen, it's already based on catastrophic disasters and it takes it. So it will explain the meaning difference of these two. The next is process safety leadership. This chapter will explain the role of the leadership in the process safety management, the responsibilities in PSM implementation, and we'll also understand how this management will show commitment to the implementation of PSM, because if the management is not committed, then the people will not be encouraged to follow the regulations and for the requirements. And also, it will explain how management can bring about continuous improvement in the health and safety performance of the company, the health and safety, because that takes care of all the aspects. Next is organization learning. Organization learning is, it will just explain the purpose of organization learning. That means sharing of lessons learned. Now, the mistakes happen in many companies, and once you learn from their mistakes, you ensure that it doesn't repeat in your company. So we need to have all the lessons learned within your company, other companies, and take advantage of that and try to implement their recommendations so that they don't recur in your company. That is, so we also have the share about the accidents, etc. And we'll also understand you have a lot of accidents in your company, small incidents. We'll also understand the benefits of accident and incident investigation, and also why we should investigate them. Basically, it is to prevent recurrence of the accidents. Next is management of change. Now, management change, this will explain what type of changes we need to consider to manage a change, and how their changes will be managed to effectively reduce the risk to the plant and the personnel. Now, if you see the management of change, you cannot just add a piping somewhere, add an equipment, change the procedure, change the temperature, change the pressure in the plant. Because I'll take your in Flexboro in 1974, an explosion of cyclohexide. They had a lot of reactors in series, and one reactor was not functional. They simply bypassed the reactor with a small temporary piping. So they didn't do any management of that change. Somebody just decided and they implemented that, and that led to a major explosion. So management of change is a very critical. You change anything in the plant, you need to have a process and have an evaluation of that, whether it is going to cause any impact to safety and health. Now, worker means all employees. Doesn't mean just the worker, it means the management as well as the worker staff. This will outline the benefits, limitations, and types of worker participation and engagement. That means you can engage your staff in accident investigation, in training, when you're introducing a new technology, when you're commissioning startup. So many avenues are there related to PSM. You engage your worker. Next is the last one in this particular section is competence. What is competence? Competence is a combination of skill, experience, and knowledge. Now, this chapter will outline what is meant by competence and its importance to process safety. So we have just covered the first element. Let us go to the second element. Management of process risk. The first chapter in this is establishing a process safety management system. Now, we have already seen why we have to establish the system, and this chapter will outline the purpose and importance of establishing a process safety management system, and also we'll go into the details of the key elements of the process safety management system. Like OSHA has 14 elements, and most of them are covered here. Next, risk management techniques used in the process industries. This section will outline common risk management techniques used in the process industries. Now, what is risk? The risk is the likelihood that a hazard will cause harm in combination with the severity of the consequences. Basically, we can always say it's a multiplication of the probability and severity, or the likelihood and severity. So combination of these two, how likelihood the hazard can create a problem, and what is the severity if it really causes a fire or accident. So we do the risk analysis to identify the hazards, evaluate the risks, and establish controls to reduce the risk to as low as possible. So we need to have some management techniques to identify the hazards. And the famous technique used is hazard study, which all of you are aware. The other techniques also are covered in this, like the hazard, FMEA, ETA, etc. Okay. Next, we have the asset management. Now, if the asset integrity is very critical. If your pumps do not operate, if your pump can break down, piping gets corroded, or anything happens, if you don't properly inspect and maintain your equipment, they are bound to fail. Every vehicle or equipment needs to be maintained. And if you don't maintain it properly, one day it is going to let loose and the accident could be very costly. So we can't afford. So we need to maintain our asset integrity. For that, we have a lot of maintenance strategies, inspection, maintenance, training, etc. So this chapter outlines the asset management and maintenance strategies for process plants and understand the consequences of failure and how we will maintain the integrity of the assets, mostly by inspection procedures, preventive maintenance procedures, etc. The next one is role and purpose of the work permit to work system. This chapter explains the role, the purpose, and the features of a permit to work system along with the types of the permit system to be used. Now, everybody is aware of the permit to work system because it's the most common safety system which is implemented in all the plants and all, either minor or major plants is implemented. Shift may feel that shift handover, why it is here. Now, this is a human error issue. Now, shift handover is a very critical. If you don't have in a running plant, normally we have 3 shifts in a day, and if one shift doesn't hand over, the status of the plant, the status of the equipment, the status of the maintenance, and then the next person does not know, and it could lead to a major. So we have a special area for this. So this chapter will explain the key principles of safe shift handover, the importance of shift handover, and the type of information to be shared during the typical shift handover. Now, the shift handover, one of the major accidents which we can recollect was the Piper Alpha offshore oil platform accidents, which killed more than 167 personnel. But of course, this was caused by a series of failure of PSM elements. Almost 7 or 8 elements of PSM had failed in this accident, one by one, and that led to this major disaster. So what happened? The next shift person was not aware, and they were not properly tagged it or isolated. They just simply closed the valve and left it there. So this is the one of the causes. So that's why the shift handover should be very critical, and there was not a smooth handover of the shift as per the investigation. So we need to be very careful in shift hand, especially in hazardous plants. Contractor management. Now we know that all the process companies and plants, a lot of contractors employed in the company to do all sorts of jobs, right from maintenance to inspection to loading, unloading, packing, whatever it may be. Now they are working in your company, and if you don't select the right contractor who has the right experience and safety acumen, then he could create a lot of accidents in your company. So we need to know how to select, how to assess a contractor, and how to manage the contractors. So this is what we will understand in this chapter. Next, we will go to the element number 3. This is called process safety hazard control. Now, under this, the first one is the operating procedures. Now, for every plant to run without operating procedures, you cannot run the plant. You need to know how to run the plant, and you need to have the operating procedures for startup, for shutdown, for emergencies, all types of situations. You need to have operating procedures. So this chapter will explain the purpose of the standard, we call them standard operating procedures or SOPs, the types of SOPs to be handled, to be written down, and what should be included in the SOPs also is covered in this chapter. We'll also understand how to maintain the SOPs, current and limitations, and the limitations of the SOPs. The SOPs have to be current, and as per OSHA, every year you have to ensure that your SOPs are current, because you operate procedures during the year, and if you don't alter your safety procedures, if somebody follows the same old procedure, it could lead to some accidents on a yearly basis are maintained current. Safe startup and shutdown. Will explain the various types of startup and shutdowns, and includes a list of items to be covered in a pre-startup safety review. Be new plant or a modified plant, you need to have a pre-startup safety review, we call PSSR. So it also includes some item covered in that and gives you an idea of that. Safety critical performance standards. This will understand the key reasons for performance standards of safety critical equipment. Safety critical equipment is those equipment which can cause major disasters if they fail, if they're not properly maintained. So we'll understand the performance standards for these critical systems. Utilities. This chapter will cover the properties, the uses and hazards of steam, water, and it also deals with the concept of inerting and purging. Inerting, purging with fusion or of storage tank, we call them tank blanketing, and their hazards and risks are also covered in this section. Static electricity. This chapter covers the hazards of electricity, how they can harm the human body. It also explains how the static charge is generated and controlled. We have seen many fires which take place and which are assigned to static electricity. So we need to understand how the static charges are generated and how they are controlled. Dangerous substances. This section explains the forms of dangerous substances and how the form affects the risk potential. Among the dangerous substances discussed are explosive substance, oxidizing substances, flammable liquids, and gases. Next, we come to reaction hazards. Reaction hazard. This section will cover the types of reactions and also the cause of consequence of runaway reaction. Runaway reaction is we don't have any of the reaction. It is already, mostly this happens in polymerization and other reactive reactions. Bulk storage operation. This covers mostly your bulk storage tanks because huge quantities of chemicals are stored in huge tanks. As the plant scales are increasing, becoming larger and larger, this storage also increases. Okay, let's continue. Reaction hazards. This section will cover the types of reactions, the causes and consequences of runaway reactions. Runaway reaction is one which we have no control and could lead to, these are mostly in polymerization plants where you lose control and the rate of reaction increases with the temperature, etc. Bulk storage operation. Now, as the industries are going to large scale, and the bulk storage operation is becoming very critical because we have huge inventories. So the bulk storage operation covers the risk related to the storage tanks like overfilling, effects of vacuum, and failure modes of tanks and tank shells. Further, it will cover how to site the storage tanks and also about warehousing management. Now, warehousing management, if we store some hazardous chemicals in the warehouse, we need to also take proper precautions. So we need to know how to handle those. And that is also covered in the bulk storage operation chapter. Okay, so that is for as far as element 3 is concerned. Now, the fourth element. The fourth element is about fire and explosion protection. Now, we know sometimes the fires are inevitable and we cannot really stop the fire from happening due to so many reasons, due to your neighbor plant on fire and due to something else. So once we have the fires, we need to fight the fire and somehow reduce the consequence, mitigate the fire so that your damages are less people are injured or killed. So for that, there are some principles and some understanding we need to have of how we fight the fire and what are the fire hazards, etc., which are covered in this section. So let's start with the fire hazard. So the first chapter is the fire hazard. This explains the fire triangle, how the fires are caused. We have the 3 elements, which is already seen on the screen. The typical ignition sources, because ignition source is one element of the triangle. So if you isolate the ignition sources, half your job is done. So once you identify them, and then if you eliminate them or somehow control them, that will help you save some fires. It will also cover the mechanism and consequence. Now, fires are many types of fires. We have jet fires, we have pool fires, we have blaze, we have vapor cloud explosions. So we'll understand the mechanism of them and what can happen if they really let go. We have the consequence from them. Okay. The next chapter is fire and explosion control. This section outlines the appropriate control measures to minimize the effects of fire and explosion in the process industries. We will also learn about now for how to prevent this fire, we need to detect the gas. If we don't detect the gas in the fire, it will be too late. So we need to understand what type of gas and fire detections are available in the industry, what type of devices, and once you detect them, save the plant from a fire explosion if you do something, but sometimes it's too late. And once you have a fire, then we also have the active and passive fire protection system. We'll study about them. What active is about fire water system, firefighting, and passive is about bund wall of the storage tanks, or even if you have fireproofing of the structure, etc., which are in the fire envelope. Then fire protection systems, let it be right from extinguishers to foam system to clean agent system were covered, explosion protection systems and other firefighting systems. So how you protect your company from fires and explosions, we will cover in this section. Next, there are also some companies handling dust. Now remember, the dust also can explode and can cause really havoc. So this chapter outlines how the dust have the potential to explode and the commonly used measures adopted to prevent and minimize dust explosions. Next is emergency preparedness. Now, once we have a fire and explosion, as I said, sometimes it's inevitable, then you must have an emergency preparedness plan or emergency response plan, how to handle that emergency. So this last chapter will cover the purpose and development of an emergency plan and outline the list of emergencies for which the plans are to be developed. We'll also understand the competency required for the response team, because everybody cannot handle the situation. So there are some specially trained people who are called the fire response team or emergency response team. So we require them to be competent enough. If somebody is very weak and he's very sensitive, then he cannot do this job. So we need to know the competence of the team and the commanders, and also how the mock drills are conducted. Because whenever we have a fire, we need to practice how we are going to, if really a fire takes place, where we should meet, how we should go, etc. So all those things are rehearsed regularly, and they try to get perfect situations. So when the real fire happens, they are able to handle to the best possible method. So this is just briefly about what this course covers briefly, without going to the details of them. So I think with this, I just completed my presentation. And if any questions are there, I will give it to Aishwarya to take over and take up the questions, if any, or if any. Your mic is off, Aishwarya.
Yes, sir. Sorry. So, sir, you can stop the share screen from your end, so that we can proceed with the.
Yeah. Correct. 1 minute.
Yes. So thank you, sir, for the presentation. We are having a lot of questions from our participants today, and so we can start to address each one of them one by one.
Okay.
So to begin with, there's this first question which we have received, that how is it that process safety management is beneficial to the sewage treatment plant? So if you could please elucidate us with this.
Now in the sewage treatment plant, if you are going to have normally you can generate some toxic chemicals in that during the fermentation, etc. And if they are really that dangerous, and if they are listed in the list of chemicals of OSHA, and then it can be applicable there. But remember that thing, the sewage treatment plant also handles a lot of chemicals. And even if your chemical doesn't really come into the list of OSHA's hazardous chemicals, you may still implement. These are very good implementations, elements which can be used to make your plant safe. So the sewage treatment plant also you can implement if you want, though it may not be legally required as per OSHA, etc. But you can implement, because we have very good systems here, like the permit system, the training, etc. If you implement this in a small way, it will definitely help the sewage company also. And if you, of course, if you identify your hazards, if there are any toxic chemicals, then definitely you have to to make your plant more safer. But remember one thing, many companies already have safety systems in place. They're already managing some system. It's only to make it more organized and effective. It will help also further and give you a better angle, a different angle from this one. Yeah, hope I'm okay.
So, Mr. Olagunju, I hope that Mr. Dubbel was able to answer your question. Going forward, there's another question from a participant. Are there any exception areas to the implementation of process safety management?
Yes, I think I'm okay. Yes.
I'm not able to hear.
So you're not clear, your network is breaking.
Was it that PSM doesn't apply exceptions? You're talking about exceptions, right?
Yes. The next question.
Okay, let me answer that. The PSM, process safety management, as per OSHA, doesn't to retail facilities where you're filling fuel, etc., and refueling stations, etc. Retail facilities, oil and gas, well drilling and servicing, and normally unoccupied remote facility where people are not working in remote oil wells, etc., in the deserts where we don't go there. Ultimately, you want to save the human being. You want to save the engine. If personnel are not working there, the plant can be managed. So these are some of the exceptions of apply the. And if you don't have hazardous chemicals in your plant, then you don't need PSM straight away. If you're not going to get any fire, explosion, etc., then you don't need PSM.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you for that one, sir. Moving to the next question from Mr. Harry Alex. He asks that, is a barrier failure event that does not result in hydrocarbons to surface classified as a process safety event? Is this event classified as a process safety event?
Barrier failure
event that does not result in hydrocarbons.
Yeah, if it doesn't release in hydrocarbons and if it doesn't cause any damage or fire explosion, then but it has the potential. Understood? Even the barrier fails, but today it didn't create a potential damage, but tomorrow it can. It could still be if the barrier failure can be still treated as a potential process safety event, because not necessary if you escape today, but tomorrow you may get trapped. So you must still consider and take care of that failure, why it has happened, and investigate. Yeah.
There's always a possibility of that happening in the future. Correct.
Yes. So you cannot, one exception cannot be
ignored.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. So,
ignored. Correct. You're right.
So there's another question. Are there any prerequisites in taking the course? I believe Mr. Dubbel has covered this in his presentation. Mr. Dubbel, if you can just again re-emphasize on the point of the prerequisites for this particular course.
Yeah, since this course covers the handling of highly hazardous chemicals and is related to all operation plants. If somebody has an experience of knowledge of the basic health and safety of these plants, that would be beneficial.
Okay, that would be an add-on point.
Yeah.
Okay, moving to our next question. Here it is. If a plant has only one process area covered by process safety management, should process safety management be applied to all the other process areas in the plant?
Not necessary, not required.
Okay.
If the plant has one process area and other plants are not process areas, then this PSM can be applied only to that one process area, and other plants you don't have to apply all these elements in the other areas. So, but you can use them if you feel comfortable. You can use them in those areas, but it's not necessary. But you can use for one area is enough. You can follow the process safety. You don't have to go into other areas.
Okay.
The answer is no. Yeah.
Okay. Noted. Okay. So there's another question from Mr. Prasanna. He asks that how is process safety management applied to warehousing? It's an interesting one. And transportation sector that stores and transports dangerous goods like class 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9. He's mentioned the classes that he wants to have the information about.
Correct. So class 2, 3, etc. They are all dangerous chemicals and hazardous chemicals. They are all dangerous categories. And if you take as per the OSHA standard, if they are coming in the list of the chemicals, or and if you're storing more than 4.5 tons in your warehouse or in your storage tank, then this is still applicable to warehouse. And also if you're transporting these hazardous chemicals which can cause fire, etc., toxic leakages, they are also covering under warehouse. Warehouse also covered in PSM. But if the transport is going from your warehouse to another outside your premises, that is covered by a different transport standard. So we are focusing within the 4 walls. So PSM is applied to within our 4 walls, and definitely if you're handling the hazardous chemicals in your warehouse, you can follow PSM for them. It is applicable and it can be used, because if the chemical tanker collapses or has an accident within your complex, it can lead to some fires and explosions or some injury to some persons. So we consider even for warehouses. Yeah.
Correct. So, Mr. Prasanna, hope this was helpful to you. Moving on to the next question that we have. Does employee participation need to be done for all elements? What type of consultation is expected?
Yeah, okay. Now, the employee participation is not required for all the elements. It makes sense, you can apply, but you don't have to apply to all the 14 elements. Like, I'll give some examples where employee participation can be useful in the management of process safety. So when you do the hazard study, you do the process hazard analysis, you conduct the risk analysis, the workers can be involved in that. With preparation of operating procedures, because they know how to operate the plant best. Training, they can be used for training their juniors, and they can also be help in making training procedures. Then pre-startup safety review. When we do any plant startup needs to have a pre-startup safety, and they can be involved in that because they are the best people to know the plant. So they'll be very useful in pre-startup safety reviews. Similarly, incident investigation. If the incident happens, those who are working the plant people, they know best. So they'll be very useful in incident investigation. Similarly, for emergency planning. So these are some of the areas where elements which we can do the consultation with the workers. So the answer is not necessary all the elements, but where it makes sense. And I've given some examples of that. Yeah.
Mr. Dubal, good morning.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but there is a lot of mic disturbance coming in. Can you please look into it?
Mic disturbance.
Sorry for that. Yeah, I've been messaging
No
and
problem.
no one has noticed it.
Aishwarya, can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
I
It's
can
a
hear
mic
you.
disturbance. Your mic has been moving, so it's creating a rubble. Just like
My mic is moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you could just.
Okay, maybe I'm fine.
Is it better now, sir?
Yes, it is.
Okay, maybe there's some network disturbance.
Can you hear me
that
now?
we're
Is
facing.
it okay?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Actually, the mic was, I think, moving due to the air or something, and it was creating a rubble. I couldn't hear you for the last like 15 minutes what you were talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Aishwarya.
Yes. So we are having few questions here regarding the examination and the content of process safety management. So for these, our learning advisors will get in touch with you and get back to you with all the details. So moving on to our next question. There's a question from Mr. Dennis Jose. He says, can we maintain a checklist for shift handover in process safety? How can we make it better? How do we improvise on that?
Yeah, for shift handover, definitely we can have a checklist. Many companies list for shift handover, because if you've considered all the aspects, like what is under maintenance, what is the plant status, what is the overtime status, how many people are come, how many people have contractors are working, you can have a checklist that will be very helpful in. You have to tailor make your checklist for your particular site, your particular plant. That will be the very good tool to ensure that you don't miss out anything and you hand over them properly. Yes, the answer is yes. Okay. And it's a very good idea being done in many companies.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you,
Yep.
sir.
Yep.
So there's this next question which says, so does the process safety management apply to on-site movement of highly hazardous containers in trucks or rail cars?
Yes, the process safety definitely applies to the on-site movement of storage of hydrocarbons, highly hazardous chemicals, or vehicles operated by the employees. Definitely. Uh, so within the company, definitely it is applicable, but outside on the transport division or some other standard will take care. So yes, it is applicable for transport within the company, because inside the plant there are a lot of tankers which are moving in and out, trucks, etc. If something happens to them, they have an accident, they spill or something, and then it could cause. So definitely it's applicable. Answer is yes.
Okay, okay, okay. So moving on to our next question from Mr. Pragateswar.
Yeah.
He asks how process safety management is different from oil and gas operation safety.
Um, it's not any different. It is the oil and gas safety. PSM is a part of oil and gas safety. See, oil and gas is a big field. You know, you have the right from oil wells right up to the refinery. That entire thing is oil and gas. So this is applicable to all the areas of the oil and gas safety. So we don't keep separately oil and gas safety or PSM safety. PSM is a part of oil and gas safety. I would put it like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, moving on to our next question from Mr. Pala Karthik.
Yeah.
How does this process safety management applicable for offshore vessels, for example, ships? And if a company is operating 10 ships, is there an individual process safety management where we can monitor all units using one system? So I guess he's talking about a single point of system wherein all the processes could be managed. But
Yes. See, you can apply this to the offshore also. You're operating very hazardous chemicals and a lot of oil under high pressure and temperature being operated there. So definitely it is applicable for the offshore. Can you repeat the question once again? The second part I didn't follow. Just repeat it.
if a company is operating 10 ships, is there an
10 ships.
individual process safety management where we can monitor all units using one system?
Process safety management system can be one, but each one will be treated like a separate site for operation of that. We'll need to have its own systems. You may have a common work permit procedure, operating procedure, etc. But each site will be treated separately for the implementation, because each site have different people, different capacities of the plant, different sizes of the vessels. So that will be slightly different. Otherwise, you can have a common for all the 10 vessels.
Okay, okay. So this would be the last question for our session today. We are having many questions coming up from our participants, which will all be addressed to on an individual basis. Our learning advisors will get in touch with you. Also, the questions regarding to the cost, the details of the training, content, duration, everything will be addressed to by learning advisors, and will be providing you with the proper details. So here, moving on to the next question from Mr. Dubbel. Does exchanger boilers, furnaces comes under process safety management content? The exchangers, boilers, furnaces, are they covered under process safety management content?
They are definitely covered if they are handling hazardous chemicals.
Okay.
Because we need to maintain them.
Okay.
And if they are, because in these equipment you have chemicals operating maybe at high temperature, pressure, etc. So these equipment, if not maintained properly, they can give way and can release the hydrocarbon or the chemical in the atmosphere, causing fire, explosion, etc. So definitely, if they are handling hazardous chemicals or highly hazardous chemicals, if they are handling, definitely applicable. If they are handling water, etc. Answer is yes.
So can you come again on the last response? Your voice was breaking. If you could just repeat the last part of your response.
Okay. We are talking about exchangers, vessels. Basically, it's, PSM is applicable to a facility which handles high hazardous chemicals, and these equipment are part of that facility rather than for an equipment. So the equipment is part of the PSM system because you need to maintain your equipment. So one of the element is integrity of the facility. In that, these equipment have to be maintained properly so that they operate correctly and they don't give way in the running of the plant. I hope you could clear that.
Yes, that was audible now, sir. Thank you for answering all the questions. All our participants, I hope we were able to address to your queries. To those who were not able, we were not able to address to, we'll be getting in touch with you on the personal messages. We will be addressing to those queries as well. So now that we have come to an end of our session, I would like to thank all our participants for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us today for our session. It was great to have all of you. Also, thank you, Mr. Dubal, for sharing all the insights. It was really helpful for all of us. And before leaving, I would again want to talk about the session, the course that we are having for NIBOSH Process Safety Management, starting from October 4th to 7th. The bookings are open. You can get in touch with our learning advisors for further details about the course. Also, about the webinars that we are coming up with, one of which is tomorrow. That is on the offshore trainings, focusing completely on OPITO. And then also we have one more coming up on 17th September, which is regarding the lifting trainings approved by LIA. So thank you again for joining us for today's session. Have a good day ahead. Bye.